Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on something I think a lot of us run into. Getting the detail right when we describe project risks.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been just buried under super specific things that might happen? Or maybe the opposite, dealt with risks written so vaguely they're just not helpful.
Yeah, totally unactionable. Happens all the time.
So our mission today is to kind of unpack that. We've been looking at the risk doctor briefing, describing risk, how much detail, and it's got some, well, really practical ideas.
It really does. It highlights three sort of core things to think about.
Yeah.
How you're going to manage the risk, who's going to own it, and, what reporting you actually need.
And they all connect, right? They're not separate silos.
Exactly. They influence each other.
Yeah.
Getting that balance is, well, it's key.
Okay, let's dive in then, starting with management. The briefing argues pretty strongly that how you write down a risk should link directly to how you plan to handle it.
Makes sense.
They use this almost comical example of a useless risk. Something unexpected might happen during the project.
Oh, yeah, that one.
I mean, you read that and just think, well, obviously, what can you possibly do with that information?
Nothing. That's the point. It's technically true, sure, every project has unexpected stuff, but it gives you zero leverage. How do you plan for just something?
It's way too broad. No trigger for any real action.
Right. It's like saying there might be weather.
Okay. Then they flip to the other extreme, this incredibly detailed scenario.
The one about George Smith.
Yeah, George Smith, the junior system architect, may break his right leg at the football match next Tuesday night and not be able to finish the phase 2.4.2 detailed design drawings.
Right. Way, way too specific.
And while, okay, maybe that could happen, focusing on that exact thing feels misplaced.
Totally misplaced. It's impractical. Imagine trying to track every possible weird accident for every single team member. You'd drown in low probability noise.
You'd miss the bigger picture risks.
Exactly. You'd miss the systemic things that could actually, sink the project. It just doesn't scale.
Yeah. So that leads to their suggested middle ground, something like key staff may not be available when required to complete the system design.
Ah, now that you can work with.
Yeah, this feels much better from a management perspective, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Because that description lets you be proactive. You can think about, okay, resource planning, backups, maybe cross-training someone or shadowing.
Or even just breaking down tasks so one person isn't the single point of failure.
Precisely. It flags the real potential problem lacking skills when you need them without getting lost in, specific football injuries.
It really shows how different risks just naturally need different levels of focus for management.
That's a really important point. A small, contained risk. It'd be just a quick description, a simple fix, a huge strategic one. That needs deeper analysis, a more thought-out plan.
So the details should sort of match the potential impact and the complexity of the response needed.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Proportionality is key.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. The second component they talk about is ownership.
Right. Crucial.
The briefing says each risk needs to be clear enough so you can assign it to one single accountable owner, which, that just makes intuitive sense if no one owns it.
It falls through the cracks, guaranteed.
So how does the level of detail play into ownership then?
Well, what's interesting is that varying the detail actually helps assign ownership effectively across the organization.
How so?
Think about it. A really specific, detailed risk. That might be perfect for a junior team member to own, someone working right in that specific area. It's within their direct control and expertise.
Okay, got it. Like a specific technical task risk.
Exactly. But then you have bigger, maybe more strategic risks, right? Like market changes or major resource conflicts.
Things with broader impact.
Right. Those higher level risks, described more broadly, are better suited for a senior manager or maybe even the project sponsor to own. Their scope of influence is wider.
So the description level kind of mirrors their responsibility level.
Precisely. The briefing really emphasizes that flexibility. You don't shoehorn every risk into the same descriptive box because the people owning them operate at different levels.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've got management, we've got ownership. What about the third piece, reporting?
Reporting needs. Yeah, this one also seems pretty logical when you think about it.
The detail needs to match who you're talking to, basically.
Exactly right. Consider your audience, the actual project team members, the ones doing the mitigation work. They probably need the nitty-gritty details for the risks they're managing.
They need to know the specifics, causes, consequences, the actions they need to take.
Definitely. But then think about your sponsors, or maybe the client.
They probably don't want or need every single detail about every minor risk.
Probably not. They're likely looking for a summary, right? An overview. Maybe risks grouped into bigger categories so they can understand the overall risk landscape.
The big picture view. What's the project's total risk exposure looking like?
That's it. So, as the briefing points out, there isn't just one right level of detail for describing a risk. What's essential for one person might be just noise for another.
Okay, so managing this seems like the core challenge then. If different levels are needed for management, ownership, and reporting, how do you handle that complexity without, chaos?
Well, that's where a tool they mentioned comes in handy. The risk breakdown structure, or RBS.
RBS. Okay, tell me more. It sounds like structure, which sounds good.
It is. It's basically a hierarchical way to organize potential sources of risk. Think of it like an org chart, but for risks.
Okay, breaking it down systematically.
Exactly. So at the very top, level 0, you just have project risks, super general.
The umbrella term.
Right. Then level 1 breaks that down into major types. The briefing uses examples like technical, commercial, management, external, big bucket.
Okay, broad categories.
Then you go deeper. Level 2 subdivides those. So technical risk might break down into, say, technology itself, performance issues, reliability, interfaces, stuff like that.
Getting more specific about where within technical the risk might come from.
Precisely. And you can keep going down to level 3, level 4, whatever makes sense, until you're describing individual specific risks under those categories.
So you end up with this tree structure accommodating different levels of granularity.
That's the power of it. You get the high-level overview and the detailed specifics, all organized within one framework. It gives you consistency.
Okay, so how does that RBS structure help with our original problem finding the right level of detail?
Well, different levels of the RBS naturally serve those different needs we talked about.
Ah, okay. So the lower, more detailed levels, that's where the hands-on management and specific ownership happens.
Exactly. Someone managing a specific work package needs the detail at, say, level 3 or 4 that impacts their tasks directly. They need that granularity for action.
Like the safety engineer example they used, needing level 4 detail for specific trial risk.
Right. But then when you need to report upwards or for higher level oversight,
you use the upper levels, like the CTO just needing the overall level 1 technical risk summary.
Precisely. The RBS lets you roll up the details. You aggregate the lower level risks into those broader categories for summary reporting.
So you can zoom in or zoom out as needed.
That's the key benefit. It provides that flexibility. Detail for management and ownership down low, summarized view for reporting, and strategic oversight up high.
So it sounds like the main takeaway isn't about finding one magic level of detail.
Not at all.
It's more about consciously thinking about why you're describing the risk. Who needs this info? For what purpose? Management, ownership, reporting.
Yes, understanding the need dictates the appropriate level of detail.
And tools like the risk breakdown structure give you a practical way to manage those different levels within a single coherent system.
That's it, exactly. It moves you from a potentially messy, inconsistent approach to something much more structured, targeted, and ultimately more useful.
That really leaves you with something to consider, doesn't it? Maybe thinking about how implementing an RBS, or even just the principles behind it, could work in your own projects.
Could it improve clarity, accountability?
Yeah, could it help ensure the right information at the right level of detail actually gets to the right people? Maybe think back on a project. Was the risk description a help or a hindrance?
It's definitely worth pondering for your own context.
It really boils down to empowering people with the information they actually need to manage uncertainty well.
Couldn't agree more. Effective communication is central to effective risk management.